I was exposed to learning how to grow something from nothing, that 0 to 1 transition, working with people that I had never met who had different skills and backgrounds, and more importantly, different motivations for being there.
The ability to be someone who just gets to work and has a lot of skill to figure things out. Like all of that, I think allows you to be successful as an entrepreneur and a business owner.
I followed the model of a jack of all trades, master of none. And because I wanted to be good enough at a lot of things, both business and personal. Like, I wanted to be good enough at certain sports so I could enjoy them. Because if you suck at something, it's not fun.
I think move in and out of those different roles in talking to people. Like, I think that's also a very instrumental skill that you develop by having, a varied background where it's, you mentioned your friends that have done the same thing for 15 years. They probably can't do that the same way.
What it boils down to is that humans want to.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I'm here with Dustin Fusillo, a business operator and AI enthusiast. Dustin, as I said, I like brief intros. I much prefer to let you talk about you and your background, and as we discussed, we'll go as deep in that as you want. But let's just start there. Well, first, let me say thank you. Thank you for coming on the show today. I really do appreciate the time and being on here to share your story. So I'm excited to hear it and dive in. But let's start with you. Tell us about yourself and kind of your background, and get us somewhere about where we are today. And then I'm sure I'll have questions.
Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to share my story. I hope it can inspire some people to, get through whatever troubles they're going through or reach for the next level. We were talking before we hit record. I think a lot of life is about adversity, and we try to highlight our business experiences and our professional successes, but I think it's important to talk about struggle. I grew up in Florida on the West Coast, lower middle income, had a happy, safe home, didn't have a lot of extra, and went to a private school. So when you're kind of in that socioeconomic class I was in, you don't really realize the difference of money and income until you go to a private school where it's kind of amplified.
Sure.
And that was kind of my first exposure to, okay, there's actually different types of people in the world, because I would be using the backpack from 3 years ago, and all my friends would have new backpacks and new clothes. And, it's a materialistic thing, but you do notice it. So, as a young person, I became very independent because I had a certain preference for different things. I like to tell my bicycle story. When I was a kid, my mom took me down to the bike shop when I was about 11 years old. And of course, a bike is like a car when you're that age.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, you got $100 to spend on a bike. And even back then, that really wasn't the kind of bike that I wanted. Of course, the bike I wanted was the most expensive one in the shop. And she said, look, we can't afford that. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what do I need to do to afford something? And she's like, well, you have to work. And my dad had just wound down a lawn mowing company, a landscaping company. So he had a lot of extra gear. And I went to him and said, hey, can I borrow your stuff and start mowing lawns? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I started knocking on doors in the neighborhood. I'm sure they already had a lawn service, but they felt bad for me. And I said, hey, $20, I'll mow your lawn. And, basically spent the whole summer mowing lawns and saved up $400. Went into the bike shop, cash in hand, laid it down and said, boom, there's the bike I want. And that was like my first ever, it's my exposure to, the economy and business, but also just the pride of working hard for something and being able to benefit from your own hard work. So it was very formidable for me and drove a lot of passion and intentionality throughout my career. So, let's fast forward to high school. I was very active in work instead of scholastic and academics, unfortunately. So didn't get great grades, did okay. But I had a job, a full-time job at 17. I had part-time jobs from 14 on. And I really liked working and liked the independence that came from work. when I decided to get serious about school, of course, I didn't have the grades to go to a major university. And, University of Florida, where I went to undergrad, I think the average GPA for incoming freshmen was like a 4.4. It was crazy. And I got in based on a resume because I actually had a resume with real work history and was able to submit that, and they let me in on conditional admission. But I mean, I was rare because I had actual work history, I had professional references, and the guy said, look, this is pretty unique. We don't want just super smart academics here. We also want people who have real world experience. And ultimately I learned that the only thing I really care about is, are you going to graduate, and are you going to attribute your success to the school? That's all they care about. And they want to
Yeah.
create proud alumni, hopefully that ones that'll donate back to the school. So once I understood the business model, I was like, oh, okay, I just have to graduate and like show you that I will graduate and I have the drive and ability to do so. Of course, I didn't get great grades my first semester because I partied a little too hard, but I was able to turn it around and get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So let's just stop there. Let me know if you have any questions, and I can keep going.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's an interesting. I mean, I had similar experiences when I realized we didn't have a lot of money. It was kind of like you don't think about it until something puts it in your face, right? Like for you, it's private school, but like something shows you, hey, other people aren't like this. Like other people have different experiences in that regard, and I like you. I found out that like work was actually a pretty effective way to fix that problem. Like deciding that you want something, and it's like, oh, well, all I got to do is go work. Okay, I can do that. Like and it's like that has stuck with me to this day. So I mean that experience, that kind of message there really resonates with me, and it's even so much so that I worry. I don't know if worry is the right word. I think about it a lot with my kids. My kids are very young right now, and we are better off than I was at their age. But I'm like, no, we're still going to work. Like there's still, you got to learn the value of that. And so I just think that's, starting off your career that way, starting off, it makes, it changes a lot for you, but it's also, I think, a very, very effective lesson to be taught young.
It's a great point, Jason. And I am fortunate enough to have some very high net worth friends and mentors, and it's a struggle for them with their kids because they did not have it. Many of them did not have much at all growing up. Now they have considerable amounts of wealth, and it's like, how do you not ruin your children because they want to give the kids things they didn't have? Obviously, I think experience is the absolute best thing you can spend money on. Expose them to different cultures and different countries and languages and cuisines. Like that's very enriching.
Yeah.
But on the material side, it's hard. It's like, you can afford to buy your kid a brand new car or even a luxury car, and it's like, but should you?
Hmm.
And it's. I mean, I've had deep conversation with them because I'm about to be a father. My wife is due in July. It's my first child, and
Congratulations.
I'm like, how do I? Thank you. And I'm like, how do I get this right? Obviously, I'm not at the level of my friends, but I similar to you, I have more resources than my family did, and I think it's really a balance of like safety while having some intentional adversity. I mean, I think one of my favorite quotes in the whole world is, adversity introduces us to ourselves. And if you haven't had adversity, you don't really know how you can handle stress, how you're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Sure, you can, lose a game or the winning field goal or whatever it may be. That sucks, but I think there has to be adversity throughout your life, and you go, okay, well, what did I learn from that? How do I deal with it? Because ultimately, we're all going to fail at different periods and at different scales. I've failed, many times in my life, also in business, but I learned from it. I got better, and I was able to channel that into a motivational change in my life instead of being defeated. And I think it's all about the mentality. But it's something that I grapple with too. And I do want to tie it into AI because as we talked about before, it's a big passion of mine. And I'm actually interviewing right now for TEDx here in Utah to talk about what I think is going to impact society on a deep level is the job displacement. It's going to be less economic. I mean, obviously it's going to hurt economically, but
Yeah.
but who we are as a career, I mean, a lot of times it's defined by our jobs. Obviously you meet somebody and there's this bad habit of what's your name, what do you do? And I hate hearing that question because I don't think what you do defines you, but a lot of Americans, it does define you. And I think it's going to create a crisis for people when they lose their job. And it's not just their job, they're going to lose their ability to do that job because AI is going to do it better than them. So
Mhm.
it's not like you're just changing from one firm to another firm. It's like that doesn't exist anymore. So a little foreshadowing on a later conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I completely agree that is going to be the concern. It's not like I don't have a job at this company. It's just that particular skill set has been taken over by AI and technology and all of that. But we will come back to that for sure. I want to make sure we kind of get your story so everybody understands kind of your. So I did want to ask you though. You said there was you worked between high school and college, and they accepted you on a resume. How long was that? I'm just curious what the kind of breakdown of time between high school and college and then going back to college.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Sure. So night 17 had my first full-time job, big boy job, and then worked in the several sales jobs, 18, 19, 20. And then around 21 is when I was like, okay, all my friends are in college. They seem to be having a great time. University of Florida football was really doing well. And I would go up there to visit them, and I'm this is the dream. Like, you guys do this every night? It was amazing. So I was going to community college at the time and working full time, and I had a lot of success. I mean, I was making more than both of my parents combined when I was 19 as a salesperson. I worked it was kind of like a Best Buy. It was a local high-end appliance, electronic, and furniture store. So I'm a technology nerd. I love electronics, and I was able to kind of really hone a skill of retail sales. I had a veteran manager who took me under his wing. I was the youngest person there by like 15 years, 20 years. There was veteran retail salespeople there that had, made a career out of it. And back then you could. And I learned a lot and again, was exposed to money, realized very quickly it does not matter how much you make. It matters how much you spend because
Yeah.
I was making, very good money for someone my age, but spending almost twice as much. And I remember I had a financial advisor and we sat down one day and I'm like, hey, I want to, figure out where I'm at financially, how I can begin to be more responsible. And he's like, okay, well, list out all your assets. And I put on there like Wave Runner and boat and car and motorcycle. And he's like, well, these are actually liabilities because you owe money on them. And I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, it's an asset. It's like, no, it's
Yep.
a depreciating asset and you owe money on it. So it's actually a liability. And I was like, well, that was interesting. Okay, glad I learned that at 20 years old.
Yeah.
So went to college after that. I basically made the decision, okay, I'm going to stop working in a place where I felt like had a ceiling. I was pretty close to the ceiling, even at 20 years old. So made the decision to stop working in a retail setting and went to college. In college, I still worked. I was a bartender. Started out as a door guy, became a bar back, and then a bartender, and had a lot of fun. It was a great place to spend time with your friends while getting paid. And it got me through school. Was able to graduate with no debt. So
Nice.
kind of paid my way through school with bartending, and then grad school, I ended up working with the executive office of the governor. So the governor of Florida at the time, they had a program where if you worked full time for the government, you could go to grad school, any kind of school, undergrad or grad school, for free. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take this job. And that job paid $25,000 a year, which was a fraction of what I made 3 years prior.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is wild. But for me, I had become sensitive to debt based on those conversations and what I learned about money and finance. So I was like, I want to go to school without debt. And obviously, at the time, I was in a good place because I was trying to study politics and government. So, working for the governor of Florida while getting a master's degree in government, I have an MPA, which is like an MBA, but for government.
Yeah.
I was like in the perfect place to learn. Unfortunately, after getting a master's degree, working for the governor, eventually working for a private nonprofit think tank, which is essentially a lobbying firm, I did not enjoy politics. And this was, gosh, 12 years ago. So it's gotten way worse since then. And I was like, this is just not somewhere I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I guess that's a hard time to figure that out, I suppose, after you spent all that time in school sort of going towards that goal. But I can understand what, as a young person, you might think politics means. And then as you're exposed to it more and more, you find out it might mean something entirely different. Where did you go from there? Where did that lead you? We had obviously a high level of schooling in one particular area, but what were your next steps?
Well, I want to go back to politics a little bit further and just provide a little more context because I think it's important on how it shaped me. And you're right. I had this aspirational understanding of government and politics as service, and I worked for a state senator, and then I worked for a U.S. senator, and then I went to the governor's office. So I had a lot of exposure at various levels of government. And the closer I got to the actual inner workings, the more I realized it was really all about money. And it was
Yeah.
really kind of disappointing to learn. I mean, I worked for a U.S. senator, and we had this list of people that if they called, they got through to the senator, U.S. senator, immediately. And I was like, oh, these must be like really important people. And it was like, nope, those are just the top donors.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you call in, Jason, you have a great idea to help improve your constituency and your community, and you call in and they go, yeah, yeah, whatever. Thanks so much for your input. But if you had donated X amount of money, you got a hold of the senator, or you had lunch with the senator. And I was like, this is gross. But it was the unfortunate truth, and it's only gotten worse since then. So we can go on a tangent about that later, but let's continue on on the
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
So here I am. I've got a master's degree. I have all of the work history to kind of get me in the right position to be a very senior leader. The highest level is kind of like a chief of staff. That's the title for those roles, other than the elected official, which I also had aspirations for at the time. And I was like, I just got to get out of this. So I was I was going home to see my family, and my dad is an interior designer, and he had this high net worth client that were redoing this huge house. And he's like, you got to meet my client. Like, he's this super smart software guy. He's kind of bored right now. He wants to start a business. You guys should talk. So I'm like, sure, I'd love to talk to him. So we talk, and he's like, I want to start a private school in Bradenton, Florida, where I grew up. And I need you. I need somebody who can be like, an operations person. In spite of my political and government background, he saw the early sales and kind of business acumen I didn't even know I had. And he hired me basically on the spot. He was like, I just want you to join the startup team. I didn't even know what a startup was. I was like, what's a startup?
Yeah.
It's just basically managed chaos for those who don't know.
Right.
And he gave us a considerable amount of money and was like, okay, I'm going back to Colorado. I'll see you in 6 months. And we basically just like got to work. So that was really cool because I was exposed to learning how to grow something from nothing, that 0 to 1 transition, working with people that I had never met who had different skills and backgrounds, and more importantly, different motivations for being there. Not everybody was there to grow the school. Some folks were there to just feel special and to boost their ego. So having to navigate the politics of a startup team, and then of course this funder, this backer, angel investor who's like really absentee. Him and his wife got way more involved as time went on, but initially they were not. so that was formidable because I was like, this is fun. Like I really enjoy this. And I had so many hats. I was the IT guy, I was the project manager for the remodel. I ran the food service program and the boarding program, and I had all these crazy things that I was able to build out from nothing. And the school still exists today. So that was a really cool opportunity. When the school became stable, they kind of backfilled all professionalized staff that had academic experience. I worked myself out of a job there. He put me on a different team, starting up an online tennis academy that then morphed into an online just sports academy, and that was really cool. And then I was able to pivot into home services. So I'll stop there. But basically, in short, I was able to build two businesses from zero, kind of work myself out of a job, and they were like, hey, we don't really have a need for you anymore.
Yeah.
And that was when I began to kind of shift to something different.
I mean, I think that, something I've definitely noticed with guests on the podcast, my own life. I mean, all of these things shape us, right? Like you don't even, you might look at that path and be like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? Like it doesn't, from mowing lawns and then politics and then, working starting this school, like none of that makes sense. But I think that we probably downplay or don't realize the skill sets that go along with just doing these things. And I think a lot of it just goes back to that original theme of like, just get to work, right? Like the ability to be someone who just gets to work and has a lot of skill to figure things out. Like all of that, I think allows you to be successful as an entrepreneur and a business owner and all of that, regardless of kind of what how winding that path might be to get there. I do think that it all ties in together and shapes us. So you then mentioned, kind of getting into home services as the next step. So how tell me about that, transition and how that worked for you.
Sure. And I want to highlight what you just said. I mean, I followed the model of a jack of all trades, master of none. And because I wanted to be good enough at a lot of things, both business and personal. Like, I wanted to be good enough at certain sports so I could enjoy them. Because if you suck at something, it's not fun. Snowboarding is a big passion for mine. If you start out snowboarding from zero, it is not fun at all for like a year. You are just falling constantly.
Yeah.
And so
I never got past that.
Yeah,
I never got past the not fun part because I wasn't good at it. I was like,
it's not
I'm
fun.
cold and I fall down a lot. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Correct. I have friends come out and they're like, yeah, I want to try snowboarding. And I'm like, well, you have 3 days. You're spending a lot of money to be here. And I would not recommend that because you're going to spend the whole time falling.
Yeah.
But once you get past that, you really can enjoy it. But I never wanted to be like a professional snowboarder. Like I wanted to get good enough to enjoy it. And I did the same thing in business and in my profession. And when I got kind of down the path, I thought I had made a mistake. And more recently, I realized I hadn't, because a lot of my friends and people that I admire, they had gone on a very narrow path to become experts in their subject matter or their profession. And they had at the time exceeded me in many ways because they had become experts. 8, 10, 15 years doing the same thing. I had a friend recently had a LinkedIn post. He had been 15 years at this firm. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember when he got that job. Like, that's wild. Yeah. I've had 7 jobs since then. But he's really good at one thing. And then tapping back into the AI stuff, I think the skill set of doing one thing is actually going to be an inhibitor moving forward, unless it's very specific, if you're in medicine or something like that where it actually matters. But I feel like the folks that have a more diverse background are going to be more adaptable as things change really rapidly, and it's going to become kind of a benefit. So that's kind of where I've been focused, is trying to be as diverse as I can. And that leads me to the next step, which is home services. Totally fell into this job. So I was out networking with the Chamber of Commerce, Manatee Chamber, where I'm from. Really amazing networking group, amazing folks that really care about the community and each other, and became a core part of my life personally and professionally. And some of the mentors I mentioned earlier, I met them through the chamber, and we're dear friends today. But one of the owners of a home services company needed a salesperson, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you come in and talk to us?" I came in, and they were like, "Yeah, we're selling air conditioners, we're selling plumbing, water heaters, filtration, electrical work." And I was like, "What? Like, people do this?" Like, I had no idea, but I had the retail sales. So again,
Yeah.
tying into that random background, sales is sales. Like, if you understand the fundamentals of how to communicate, how to build trust, how to understand the customer's needs, how to solve problems, it doesn't matter what you're selling. Sales translates to almost anything unless it's super technical. And obviously I had to learn the industry, but I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot, and had a lot of success there. It was really cool. I was an outside salesperson, had a company vehicle, cruising around town all day long. Some days I'd work for 12 hours, some days I'd work for 2 hours. I really enjoyed that flexibility. I had never been in an environment where I wasn't required to be in an office all day.
Right.
So that exposed me to kind of a remote work. But what was really cool about the role was I refined my communication and sales skills in an incredible way. So what I would do is I would actually record myself on my phone. I probably shouldn't have done this. I didn't tell the people I was doing it, but I'd record myself. And then on the next call, I'll be driving to my next sales call. I would listen to it in the truck and be like, okay, I was talking too fast. I talked over the person. I didn't ask enough questions. And I would critique myself. And I would do this over and over and over again to the point where like I had it down. And I had a lot of success because of that iterative process
Yeah.
of communication. But on the human side, I met incredible people. I mean, it was so cool. I would literally be in a mansion we live near a barrier island, these incredible mansions on a barrier island. And then later that day, I'd be in a trailer park. And the same day, quoting air conditioning replacements
Yeah.
and meeting different people from way different economic backgrounds and different lives. And I would love to learn from them. And one of the coolest customers I ever had was the wife was a CIA agent and the husband was a diplomat, US diplomat. And in their house, they had this like shrine, this wall of all the countries they had lived in. And each country, they had like a little knickknack that represented the culture. And they had this map with pins in the map. And it was like, I don't remember, 150 countries. I mean, it was like 80 or 90% of the countries you could visit they had been to or lived in. And I was like, what an incredible life. And I just sat there and I was just like, tell me about your life. Like, I just want to hear more.
Yeah.
So it was a formidable experience to learn other people and cultures, be in those different environments and kind of perfect some sales skills.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've never worked in sales. I guess officially, I would say any business you're probably at some degree doing sales, but I never had the sales job, right? I never. But my understanding from people that are good at these things is what you're talking about is in terms of recording it and like practicing and playing it back. That's exactly what is recommended when like training a new sales force. That's my what as someone who hasn't done it, that's what I've heard. Is like that's what you do is you have I don't mock calls with them and record it and go over like this is where you need to adjust this. Here's your script, get it down. Like that's the key. So I mean, it just sounds like you were just naturally doing that but again, I'm sure all of that played in to your background and things you had done in the past and kind of your understanding of how that works. I also think a piece you mentioned about, you're at one point in a mansion, another point in the trailer park. In a Florida summer, everybody wants to be cool. So it doesn't really matter what your your socioeconomic background is. You're real hot in the summer in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change, but being able to talk to people that have those different life experiences, it's interesting because, you said, going all the way back to the beginning, you were talking about in your youth and you were working at a very young age, and then you were in politics. And so the way you talk to someone in those different positions is different. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you mentioned being that jack of all trades. It's almost like, being that chameleon who can speak to different people and meet them where they're at. So it's like, you mentioned the medical profession. It's like doctors talk to doctors one way, but if they're explaining that same exact thing to the patient, they're not saying those, or they shouldn't be saying those big words, because that person doesn't know what you're talking about. So like the ability to take a complex topic and explain it to someone that doesn't understand that, because I find most industries have almost their own language in a way. They
Mm-hmm.
talk about
Yeah.
things this way.
Nomenclature.
Yes.
Totally.
And so it's just the ability to kind of, I think, move in and out of those different roles in talking to people. Like, I think that's also a very instrumental skill that you develop by having, a varied background, where it's, you mentioned your friends that have done the same thing for 15 years. They probably can't do that the same way. They probably don't have that skill to talk about anything else to someone like to someone
Sure.
else. But I think being able to have all those experiences woven together is actually really, really effective in being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. I'm guessing that you would agree, but maybe just add to that to give me your thoughts and feedback on that kind of idea.
It's an excellent observation, and it's correct. What it boils down to is that humans want to connect, and we have so much inauthentic connection, especially with social media,
Mm-hmm.
that they crave it. And where I had the most success was this is a complicated thing. It's very expensive. The person that lives in the mansion that has 10 air conditioning units, they are less concerned about the cost. Certainly the cost is a factor, but they're more concerned about protecting their custom wood floors and their
Right.
their $100,000 fish tank and their wine collection. So it's
Yeah.
like understanding what's important to them is maintaining their home and peace of mind when they're at their other 2 or 3 or 4 homes. They don't want to deal with the AC going down and having to deal with some kind of catastrophic problem with humidity or whatever. Whereas the other person is concerned about, is their power bill going to go down and can they finance it, and how long is it going to take to put in, like, so. But what I would do is I would actually explain it to them how it worked. And this is a huge purchase for most people. They only make it once or twice in their life. And I would just say, look, here is what option A, low end version, does. Here's option B, mid tier. Here's high end. And I would explain very simply what you're getting with each tier. And they were like, wow, no one's explained this to me. And I'm like, how is that possible? Like, they've had other quotes, they come out and the people would just say, here's the one you want. You want to finance it, you want to buy it. And it was like, I wouldn't be comfortable making a decision like that unless I understood how it worked and what I was paying for. And more importantly, people talk. So when they go to their neighbors for a barbecue or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, I just spent 10 grand on an air conditioner. And they're like, what do you mean? I spent 5. They know that they didn't get ripped off. They spent more money because they wanted A, B, and C. That costs more money.
Yeah.
And it really allowed me to create that trust quickly. And what was cool about that job was also a super tight feedback loop. And you got like a little bit of a high because you either made the sale or you didn't. And I mean, you could calculate in your head when you're walking out the door how much money you made. And like, if you closed 2 or 3 sales in the morning, like you were like on cloud 9 because you're like, man, I made 3 grand in half a day. Like, this is awesome. Like, I'm going to keep this going. So you would continue to kind of get on that train of closing deals and winning deals. And it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, success feels good and motivates you to look for more and more success. Let's return to the story of you. What was kind of what followed this?
So I had the bug, in the startup of the school, I had that entrepreneurial bug planted, and it began to manifest more and more. I worked for a small business. I learned a lot from the owner and the owner's son who took it over and was managing it. And I was like, I feel like I can do this, but I didn't quite have the confidence to start my own business. So I was like, okay, how can I get exposed to business on like a deeper level? And my trained rep was doing that. And him and I had become close. So Train is the manufacturer of air conditioners, and we were a dealer for them. And he's like, hey, I got promoted. I need to replace myself. And you already know the territory. You know how the game is played. Do you want to consider this? And I was like, yes, because the way I approached account management was less about, okay, how can I fulfill orders for this dealer, and more about how can I grow their business.
Hmm.
So I began to dive into what are the business fundamentals of this industry. And I helped with where I was at previously, but the owner and the owner's son, they kind of knew what they were doing and they didn't need a lot of my help, but a lot of dealers did. I mean, sophistication in the trades is very rare.
Yeah.
So I was able to learn kind of best practices from Train and from very large dealers, and bring that back down to the smaller accounts and dive into their P&Ls and dive into business operations and SOPs. And I would literally teach them how to run their business, because many of them, they were a, a technician or an installer, and they were like, I'm sick of my boss's crap. I'm going to start my own company. Like, that is 99 times out of 10 how an AC business is started.
Yep.
And these
Most
people
trade
don't
businesses are
understand.
started that way. It's
Yeah, exactly.
it's like,
They don't
this
understand
guy's a jerk.
business. Like,
I'm going to do it myself.
totally.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. That is 100% how it goes. But then they don't understand, I mean, literally basic P&Ls
Yeah.
or balance sheets or marketing or how to track sales funnels and follow up. I mean, none of this stuff. But they're making 10, 15, $20 million a year. They're taking home half a million or a million. And in their mind, I am like winning at life.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, you're doing great, but you could be doing a lot better, and you could have a lot less headaches if you just operationalize this thing. And so I was able to do that with all of my accounts. And once I did that, I really had the confidence. 'Cause I'm like, and I don't want to be like arrogant about this, but I'm like, if this person can make $1 million a year, I doing what they're doing, like almost everything wrong, I know I can do it, doing hopefully trying to do as many things as possible right.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my entrepreneurial journey. So I spent that time saving money. I started to do fix and flips. So I would buy like, just run down condos and homes and physically go in there and do the work. Obviously, I was working in the trade, so I could call in favors from all my friends and be like, hey, come in, do the plumbing, electrical, etc. So started to build some cash there, and then began the process of buying a company. I was single. I went through a divorce, very painful time in my life, a lot of self-reflection there, a lot of self-improvement, and really kind of redefined who I was and what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do for my life during that time. And ultimately I was like, look, I don't have any reason not to leave Florida. I love Florida. I had a great network there, but I was like, I just want a fresh start somewhere. I mentioned earlier, I love snowboarding. I love mountain biking. I'm going to go to Colorado. Like, that seems like the epic place to live. Tons of young people. I did some research online demographics. It was like the highest concentration of 32 to 38-year-old females in the country. So I'm like, man, I got a great opportunity here to meet somebody. And so I went out there and just was targeting businesses there, and was able to buy my first business. This is a very interesting story, but I want to pause before I dive in and just see if you have any questions.
No, I'd love to hear that story. The story.
Okay.
We have parallel lives in some ways. I also went through a divorce and moved. I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, it's just I need a new start. I didn't do so much research that you did, but I just wanted to get out of there. So no, please tell me, kind of about that piece of the puzzle.
So, part of the divorce, it led me to kind of give up some control instincts that I had, control with money, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you grow up without money and then you have it, you tend to focus on it a little too much. And I went to my mentors and I'm like, hey, here's what I want to do. What do you think? And they kind of guided me through this process of liquidating everything. I sold my car. I sold all of my assets. I sold my home. And I just was full liquid, and I had a target based on what I could afford to buy a business. I found a business to buy, and this is pretty crazy. So I had an incredible kind of diligence team. I had an M&A attorney who was amazing. I had two different accountants, one that was like true quality of earnings, like deep dive financials, and then more of like a high level CPA strategist. I had insurance folks. So I had a great team. We find this business. It was doing about $1 million a year in EBITDA, 1.2 million in EBITDA. So, going from making a couple $100,000 a year to making 1.2 million, I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, what a cool opportunity.
Yeah.
So highly levered though, I'm levered at probably 90%, 85%. And there's a couple red flags early on, but the seller was really charismatic and really honest and a religious guy. And my attorney was like, okay, we're just gonna flag that, set it aside. And then these flags kept coming up. So fast forward to the end of the year, we are under contract. He knows that I am moving there. I had put in my notice at my job at Train, and I had signed a lease in Denver. So I am like all in. Well, the deal on the business was, they're never perfect, but it was like a doable deal. The one thing that I missed though was the rent. So he owned the building and was charging himself way below market rent. Well, when you do that, it obviously affects your profitability.
Right.
So if you go to a higher rent, your profit goes down, and the multiple on the profit, and the end result cost of the business should go down. And he said, oh, we're going to make it right. We'll be good to go. Well, I just missed it. And when I'm sitting in Denver and we're about to ink a deal within a week, he sends me this lease for full market rent. It was triple. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why am I going to pay triple the rent and then pay you a multiple on your current, like, we need to readjust that. And he's like, oh, okay, well, why don't we just do like a lease to buy? So he comes back with this different version where it's like, I pay a ramped rent over several years, but the way it was written was I had to improve the building, triple net terms, and then buy it. And this guy had put $0 into the building. So my attorney calls me and she's like, you are getting screwed. She's like, this guy is charging you above market rent on a ramp, and then you're going to spend the next 3 to 5 years fixing his building. And then when you go to buy it, he's going to do an appraisal, and then you're going to pay, a premium on the improvements that you made on his building. And I'm sitting in Denver and I am just like, oh my God, like I have just totally screwed up here. And I mean, I'm already 35, 40K in diligence costs. Excuse me. So that money's gone. Again, signed a lease, have no car. My job's ending in 30 days. And I was like, okay, I'm screwed. But the strength that I built through the divorce and other adversity in my life, it just gave me the perspective and the motivation to be like, okay, this is a problem I need to solve. Getting angry, freaking out, getting depressed, none of that is going to serve me. So like my mind always goes to like the hyper logical, and it doesn't always serve me, because when you're a leader of people, logic doesn't always serve you. You really need to understand the emotional aspect of people and how they think and what their motivations are. But it does serve me in this situation where I'm like, I can't feel sorry for myself. The money's gone. I got screwed. I'm walking away from the deal. So literally a week before we're supposed to close, I walk away from this deal. So that was hard. The broker I had been working with, he obviously had other listings and he knew what went down. And he comes to me and he's like, hey, I know, I'm so sorry this didn't work out. I have this other deal that I think you may like, and you can pay cash for it. So I went from a deal that was millions of dollars in debt, SBA debt, highly levered, to a cash deal. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a lower risk. And it was a fix and flip. Yeah. So he's like, hey, you used to do fix and flips on houses. This is the same thing. They need a good salesperson. They need somebody who understands operations. It's been neglected for 5 years. You can go in there and turn this thing around. So this is in the ATM industry, which as you probably know, ATMs are not growing. It's been around for a long
Right.
time. It's highly
Right.
mature, and it's got a lot of headwinds. But I'm looking at the financials. My financial folks looking at the financials, and there's a lot of customers that have been lost that could be won back. The seller's telling me, "Hey, look, this customer used to spend $1 million a year with us. I just didn't nurture that account. You just got to call them, and you'll get that business back." So I go through the whole diligence process again. Admittedly, I skipped a lot of stuff that I did on the first one just to save money.
Mhm.
But I still had, true quality of earnings and CPA, two different CPAs look at it, and all of them missed the problem, which was in the industry, it was primarily repair. It was sales and repair of ATMs. And in the industry, the repair was our highest margin, highest volume. But when you get to a certain scale, so let's just say, Jason, you're an ATM deployer and you've got 100 ATMs out there. Well, back in the day, that would generate a good bit of passive income, about $100,000 a year. Once you started getting into 150, 200 or more, or 1,000, the repairs start to add up and they're kind of a headache. So that's what we did. We would help you keep your ATM fleet up and running. But beyond about 500 or 1,000, it makes sense to start bringing that repair in-house. So I'm looking at a P&L and a customer list going, okay, these top 10 customers have declined or just fallen off a cliff. I need to call them. I need to bring this relationship back. I can do that. So I start making phone calls once this deal's done. And they go, yeah, we love you guys. You did a great job, but we do all of our repairs in-house now. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we got big enough to where we just have all those parts on hand. We have our own techs and we're good. So the seller is telling me that I can get this business back. There's a lot of other things that he lied about. And it wasn't like quite illegal, in terms of like just direct fraud that I could probably prove in court if I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorneys. But it was like, this guy he knew these customers left because they went in-house with their repairs and lied about it. So that was one of several things. I mean, the inventory said was worth $500,000. So I'm thinking in my head, worst case scenario, it's worth half that. I could sell it in a fire sale and pull some money out. It's worth a fraction of that. So that did not go well. But what was really interesting in that process was I have had so many jobs in my life and I've worked for so many people. And that was the first time I ever really felt at home. So I'm owning my own business. We are hemorrhaging cash. It's just like a dumpster fire. I'm losing people. I've got legacy staff that are trying to manipulate their way into raises and promotions that they don't deserve because they know we're under stress. I mean, it was just like really bad. But I had a couple really key employees there that just stepped up and they helped me and we got through it together. And ultimately, through networking, I was able to sell it to the largest industry player in the country. And I'm going to pause there, but that's kind of where things ended. So bought the business, didn't go well, did everything I could to turn it around, and then ended up selling the business to the largest player in Utah.
What I really want to, I guess, dig in on there is what you said sort of towards the end when you said that, it was a dumpster fire and you felt at home or comfortable. I can't remember exactly the term you used, but I mean that it's an interesting take, and I think worth exploring that a little bit more. How did you? Again, I'm shocked at the parallels in our stories, but I have felt similarly. It's like when things are really, really bad, sometimes as a business owner and entrepreneur, it still feels better than like a boring day of working for someone else.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know. I'm not sure that's not true for everybody, but when you say something like that, I'd love to hear like a little bit more about, kind of what that means to you, when you make that statement. I'm sure people listening are like, what?
Yeah. It didn't make sense to me at the time either. And reflecting on it after the fact, I actually fed a bunch of information into AI and Claude and like created a mental model of myself based on personality assessments, based on, journals and notes. And, I'm a DI on the disc, really high D, really high I, and an ENTJ on the Myers-Briggs. And those are like wired for leadership. They're wired for problem solving. And the problem in my life is like I've always been the guy who was too young to lead a company and overqualified for other roles. And it was like such a frustrating journey professionally. Like I can't tell you how many times I heard you're overqualified or you're not ready. And I was like, well, how can I be both? I mean, it was just so literally the entrepreneurial journey was I wanted to run an HVAC company and everybody told me, well, you're not ready. You've never run a business. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to freaking buy a business and I'll just be a CEO of my own business. But to answer your question, it's just like I I like solving problems and I like the idea that I have control over the outcomes. Obviously, I'm not the one making every call. I really I leaned on my vendors and my customers and my employees to kind of navigate the situation. But ultimately, it wasn't somebody above me making a decision without thinking it through. That was so frustrating. Like a lot of what happened in my life is I would have a boss that would make a decision. And first of all, they would never explain why they made the decision, who they consulted, what research they did. It was just like, okay, we're doing this. And so I learned a lot about what not to do from bad bosses. So I would be like, I'd bring in my team, be like, okay, here's the information I have. Here's some decisions that I think are the right way. What do you think? Let's talk through it. And that's what made it tolerable because it wasn't happening in a vacuum and I wasn't dictating things. It was like, we are solving problems here. We cannot make payroll. I'm not going to get paid next week. We have some net 30 customers that owe us money. Can we call them and be like, hey, we need you to pay early so we can make payroll? Like it got that bad, but that was like my first, I guess, time where I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. So
Yeah.
I bought my way into a role that nobody gave me a chance for. And it was very rewarding, even though it was going very badly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me because I've, had those similar feelings. I think I'm sure it doesn't, I'm sure not everybody has that same reaction to like, it's the, everything's really going to shit and I don't know what to do today, but you know what? I'm going to figure it out. Like and it's like, it can be exhilarating. Like we all want to get to the point where it's systematized but ultimately as a entrepreneur, you're a problem solver. So as you put those things in place and you hire the right people and all of that, I mean, you're just looking for bigger problems to solve. Then you're like, okay, how do I move up the ladder on the problem solving scale?
And my accountant, she would come to my office and she'd be like, I don't know how you're even functioning right now. Cause she's like, I haven't slept in days.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't understand. Like, what does not sleeping do to help our situation?
Yeah.
Like I have stress, but I would manage it through exercise and meditation and journaling because to me, it's like that being stressed out to the point where I'm not sleeping, I'm just going to come in the work exhausted and have an even worse day. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of that hyper logical response to the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that. I go back to that all the time where I'm like, yes, I get angry and frustrated, but like, it does not help me to hang on to that. Like feel it and then figure out what to do about it. Like those are the steps. Yeah. It's like, it's not that like, I don't feel those things. I'm like, something happens and you're just like, oh, okay. Like you can give yourself 30 seconds and then you got to figure out what to do about it. That's really the job. That's the job of being the CEO, the business owner like that. Then that's why even the CEOs of large scale businesses that they may not own it, but like you think about like Tim Cook, makes astronomical money for salary because he does that, right? He solves very large problems at a very large scale on a daily basis. And it is
that's business,
right? Like that's business.
Business is problem solving. If you run a business and you wake up today and say, man, I can't wait to go in the office and not have any problems today, like you don't understand how business is,
Yeah.
because there's problems every day and that's your job. If it's not a customer problem, it's a vendor. If it's not a vendor, it's an employee.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's not an employee, it's a competitor. So they're all, but that's just how you got to look at it. So you got it nailed, man.
Yeah. We're going to run out of time and I don't want to keep you all day. So I think I can use that statement as a segue to, all right, well, how do we integrate AI and use
Sure.
it as a tool to help solve some of these problems? What is your, sort of, I don't know, use case? How when you're thinking about how this is going to benefit yourself and others in business, what is your approach to use of AI there?
Sure. So just to give you the highlights, so I'm acquired by a company in Utah. I take over that business. I run that business for 18 months. I handle the merger and all that. It went pretty well, but ultimately I was like, look, I don't want to be in this industry anymore. Like I come from home services, high margin. This is low margin. I'm out. So in the process of this, AI has started to become more and more powerful. I was early adopter of ChatGPT 3 and started to kind of evangelize that throughout the portfolio. I worked for a company that had our business that had four portfolio companies. I ran one of them. And then I leave and I've got this time. So I'm like, okay, what do I do with this time? I want to be intentional about my next move. Like I have bounced around so much. We talked about this. Like I've been in politics and I've been in hospitality and I've been in home services and the trades. And then I've been in financial services. Like this is ridiculous. Like let's pick a lane and start to try and be an expert at something. And AI was like the perfect time because it started to get really powerful. And I'm spending 20, 30, 40 hours a week on these models. And I'm using them initially for like just fun research. Like how do I optimize my snowboard quiver? And how do I buy new parts for my mountain bike? And how do I optimize my next vacation? And I'm like, these are really cool. So then when I start getting proficient with them with my hobbies, I start going, well, let's do some research on a business idea I have. Let's just see if this has viability and how. So I start building out business plans. And then I'm like, there's a use case for this, like in business all the time. Yeah. And I've accidentally become like an AI expert. And I don't think I'm going to be one for long because the models are going to be so good that you could just have like a 1-sentence prompt and you're going to get this like insane result. Like that is going to be the future very quickly. But right now it does require some finesse and some understanding of how to ask it, how to organize the data, how to stack it in a way, and then how to present it. So what I'm doing right now is AI consulting. So, I talked to a CEO friend yesterday. He runs a large healthcare company. And I'm interviewing for a role right now with Carrier, so Train's competitor. Mm-hmm. It's a regional GM role, very, very big business, 200 employees, very large. And I know nothing about this division at all. So I start doing research on the industry, on the business, what moves the needle, where's the revenue, where are the margins, how do I drive EBITDA, obvious stuff. So I do this really in-depth research on the business, on the competitors. I create a financial model with a pro forma to grow because they want to grow about 12% a year the next 3 years. And I build out this dashboard. So basically it's just for me to understand what to do to drive value for this business and answer questions during the interview process. So I send this to some of my CEO friends and I'm like, hey, I built this for my job interview. Like, what do you guys think? And they were like, I need this for my business. Like my executive team needs to understand these levers will produce this result. Yeah. And I'm using like publicly available data. This is all, annual reports, public data. If I have internal P&Ls, this gets sharp. Literally you could sit in a meeting and go, hey, if we move this lever, this is going to happen. And then with decision intelligence, which is like a byproduct of AI and strategy, you can then predict what's going to happen and then validate that. And then as you continue to validate decisions, it gets smarter and smarter. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So that just to kind of wrap things up, I've become a power user with Anthropic and ChatGPT, and to a lesser extent, Manus and Gemini. And these tools are so powerful and they're adapting so quickly that I'm spending 40 hours plus a week using them and learning them, and I feel behind. So when I tell somebody who's running a business, like, hey, this is no longer oh, I'll let my IT guy figure that out. It's like, this is needs to be integrated into your leadership team's strategy and the daily decisions you make, because this is so powerful that it will dictate your success or failure. And when I explain it like that to people, they get really nervous and they're like, I need to go all in. But I've just been fortunate. The timing was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about AI taking jobs from people. And I think certainly some jobs will be taken, but I think the ability to be a implementer and a efficient user of AI is going to be that there's going to be new jobs created out of that. Basically, like, I think companies, especially the large ones, will be ultimately like hiring people to do these integrations and things like that. I don't know if then eventually the AI will be able to do that for them, maybe. But I think ultimately, like, being able to use it well will be a skill set in and of itself.
Totally. So what you're describing is all these new titles that have just occurred. So they have Director of AI Implementation, VP of AI operationalization. I have a hard time with that word. And then now at the C level, they have a CAIO, a Chief AI Officer, that's driving strategy at the C-suite. And but to your point, I think what's important is the human element. You need to have the subject matter expertise for AI. You need to understand the industry, but you also need to understand how to build the value and the adoption within the organization at a human level.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part. It's like you have incumbents that don't want to change their workflows. You have folks that are afraid their jobs are going to get taken. You have other stakeholders that, want to have a say in which AI tools to use. There's a lot of complexities to this. And that's where the AI piece with the human element has to be intertwined to be successful. And that's why almost every Fortune 500 has an AI adoption skunkworks division, and very few of them have generated results because they're still figuring out how to get that human piece to work. Yep. They've got use cases that say this will reduce, call times by X. This will increase sales by Y. But ultimately, it's like, if people aren't adopting it and becoming power users themselves, you're not going to move the needle in a large organization. In small business, it's incredible. It's totally leveling the playing field for small business, because they don't have access to these tools that usually you would only have with like a very advanced IT developer, division.
Right. Yeah, it is fascinating stuff, and I think it'll be really cool to see what happens. The next. It's not going to be decades. It's going to happen fast. It's going to be
2 years.
Yeah, the next.
Literally 24 months.
Yeah, it's going to be a rapid integration and increase in use. So it's very fascinating. But Dustin, I want to make sure I get to ask you the questions I ask every guest. And the first one is based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. So what is your why? What keeps you moving through this fascinating journey and kind of maintaining that passion to keep pushing forward?
Well, as I said, I'm about to be a father, so I'm pretty sure my answer is gonna change in a few months. But right now,
I feel like I can guarantee you that is the case. It will change you in some way. Yes.
Right. So, but right now, it's really just giving back to other people. And that sounds kind of corny, but I've been able to be a mentor with big brothers and sisters. I've mentored some of my mentors' children, which is kind of an awesome cycle.
Yeah.
I've done humanitarian work, and that is 100% the most rewarding thing. Like hitting a sales goal, getting a big bonus, buying a new toy. Sure, that's fun, but like, it is so small. Like the fun window is like this very small window of fun. That new car smell wears off so quickly. but knowing that you've changed the lives of people in a positive way is so fulfilling. It really is. And to be able to do that at a higher and higher level, like if you asked me, you had enough money to retire, what would you do tomorrow? It would be, I would want to invest in young people. I'd want to be an angel investor and help drive their passion, help support their passion for whatever they're into. Like that would be so fulfilling to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. When people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
LinkedIn works, or I have built out a website, which was a very weird thing to do, and I felt a little narcissistic, but it was fun to do because it was an AI project just to kind of build out my AI skills. So it's Fusillo, www.fusillo.us, and you can contact me there. You can see some of my work. It's still kind of rough drafts on stuff, but I have some pretty cool tools that I've built and some guides for people that want to learn.
Fantastic. Well, we'll get that in the show notes so people can find it. Dustin, this was a fascinating conversation. I really do appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you shared with us. It was a great conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks listening, make sure you connect with Dustin. Sounds like you can learn a lot about AI. So I'll be paying attention as well. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?